Oh, yes.
Welcome back once again, everyone. Today I'm very excited to bring you my very first War for Cybertron Kingdom Transformers review, and this is coming in the form of the new Core Class Maximal Rattrap. That's really exciting to get to use the word maximal in a review because that's not something that happens often these days, if ever. Rattrap is an all-new mold based on his Season 1 appearance. As such, he turns into an organic-looking rat. And the new aesthetic for Kingdom, when it comes to the Beast Wars characters, is realistic-looking animal modes. So he's less cartoony-looking than his CGI appearance, and less oddly vicious-looking than the original toy, which had red eyes and sharp teeth. So being part of the core class, Rattrap is meant to scale with the other toys, because Rattrap was a very small character. I mean, he turns into a rat. And overall, this is a very nice recreation of the original design. Now, it's not exactly the same. There's some key differences that I'll point out. But I think that if you don't already own a figure of Rattrap in his, pre-transmetal form, this is a very perfectly serviceable option. So if you've seen my reviews before, you know how this goes. We're going to take a look at Rattrap in his packaging, which is nice, shiny, new Kingdom stuff. Then we'll open it up, we'll see the instructions, and then we'll see Rattrap himself in both his Beast and Robot modes. I don't own the original Rattrap toy, but I will be doing comparisons with the Thrilling 30 version. And then, of course, at the end of the video, I'll give my final thoughts. So Rattrap comes in your standard blister-style packaging, which is something usually reserved for the small-size classes, whether it's Micromasters, Battlemasters. Pretty much everything else has just moved on to boxes now, which I kind of wish they would do for this too, but oh well. And I will say, finally having him in hand, he's a lot smaller than I realized. I knew he was going to be small, but boy, when you see it, it really hits home, and he really is a legend-size Rattrap toy. I'm not used to that. I think even the original was bigger than this. But as long as he scales nicely, I won't complain. Now, I will say the size class does come with limitations, which will bring about some of the discrepancies in his appearance that I mentioned. But anyway, the packaging, you can see there's this nice illustration of Rattrap running around a volcanic area, which seems to be the arc up there. There's lava flowing down. Again, very realistic looking rat compared to what the show depicted, or the original toy. Here you can see his name in both English and Ancient Autobot. And that's really all there is to see. It says Core Class on the side. Inside you can see Rattrap, obviously, with his gun, which is based off of the show model. Then on the back, you get renders of the character in both the Beast and Robot modes. Now, the renders, I will admit, look much nicer when it comes to the coloration. I think he's way too bright orange here for something that's supposed to look like, the show character. If he had been a duller shade of orange with like a shinier quality to it, I think that would have been better, but, I don't know. They don't seem to do orange very well, like orange plastic. Like, look at NEG Axis toy. It just doesn't work. So yeah, very simple, not too much going on here. You do get the nice maximal cave drawing here, which again, it's always just nice to see that as a Beast Wars fan. Okay, here's our little instruction book. You can see it's done up in the nice bright green, like what you see on the packaging. Got Rattrap's name, maximal symbol, little render here. Just open this bad boy up. This shows you how to get him from his package configuration to his robot mode proper. Get his backpack all tucked up in there. Shows you how to make him wield his weapon, or where you can store it across his back. And then you get the transformation from robot all the way to beast mode. So it becomes a little rat. Honestly, it looks more like a mouse to me, but okay. And you can store his weapon along the side of his hind leg there, which is not ideal. I wish I could have stored it up underneath, like most Rattrap toys, but oh well. That's what they went with. And now here we have Rattrap in his beast mode. And overall, it looks quite realistic. I think the head's a bit small. I don't know, maybe I'm just used to, the animation model where he's got a rather big head for a rat. But, I don't know, just makes his head look a little small for his body. Here you can see the weapon storage on the side of the leg. You can always remove that, of course. Just plugs in via this little long tab here against the leg. You can put it on this side too, it'll just face backwards. So if you'd rather that option, it works. Oops, kind of breaking them apart here. Whoopsie daisy. So the toy's not very articulated in this mode, and by not very, I mean really not at all. Like, front legs are static. The rear legs can move a bit, but in order to get them to actually stand, they basically just have to be in one position. The paint apps are pretty nice on this mode. You can see there's kind of a gradient going from the gray fur to the pinkish feet here. Here, not so much, but that's because it's separate parts. And the nose, you see the nose itself is painted, and it's also got this neat little kind of whitening effect as you get toward the tip. The eyes are black, but they have the little white dots to kind of simulate like a shininess to it. Ears are painted on the inside, so they don't slack with the paint there. I mean, they do paint them up to be quite realistic, with one exception, the tail. They did not paint his tail, it's just gray like his fur. That kind of stands out to me, because the other Rattrap toys actually had a nice pink tail. This, it's like they did so well and they just kind of gave up here in the back. Speaking of the back, a lot of people pointed out the interesting placement of his hands. It's a boy rat, as you can tell. So yeah, he doesn't hide away his kibble very well, but to be fair, even the Generations one doesn't hide the kibble well at all. Here you can see the robot head, which unfortunately there's no way to like hide that or turn it around because the back of that head forms the back of the neck here. It's got that fur kind of painted on. Which unfortunately you could also see a little bit of the robot head there, so you know, not really executed I think as well as they had hoped. But overall, you know, it works. It very much harkens back to an old basic class from a Beast Wars era or, you know, Legends. A bit smaller than those, admittedly, but it does have a higher part count, much more involved transformation, and higher posability, so it's kind of a trade-off. For comparison, here's the Thrilling 30 or Generations Rattrap. And you can see it's a lot bigger, being a deluxe class toy. Much more detailed looking. And like I said, it has a bigger head, which again, I don't think is really accurate to a real-life rat at all. But it does reflect the show model a lot better. Now, I'm not going to hold that against a new toy because the whole goal of the new toys was realistic beast modes, which means they're not always going to look like they did in the show. Because the show, you know, took some liberties there. Also, he's kind of got the sharp teeth, which, you know, not very realistic for a rat. Shouldn't be quite like that. Just realized he's got like this little ugly nub right here between his teeth. Huh, I never realized my Rattrap had that mold flash on it. Look at that. It's gone now. Alright, so you can see, you know, both undersides are equally exposed. This one has a lot more articulation. All the legs can move around. In fact, the Thrilling 31 can actually stand up. You can bend the tail back, adjust the legs, and make him stand like he is wont to do in the show. Of course, it does expose the undercarriage, but you know, you can still emulate it. And he's actually got this extra plate here, this extra piece to cover up the gap when you put his head down. Not to mention the tail. Not only is it the right color, but it's articulated. It has a wire in it, so you can bend it and do all sorts of cool stuff with it. So, you know, speaking purely as far as quality of a toy, I mean, the Thrilling 30 is winning easily in this mode. Again, different size class. This toy nowadays would cost at least $20, so twice what the new one costs. But I will say, acknowledging the size class thing, the old toy just feels a lot more satisfying. It really does. It's got so much more personality than this just static little mouse thing. Right now it's time to do our transformation. So let's go ahead. If you haven't already, remove the weapon. You're gonna lift his little back section up, like so. Gonna unfold his legs. It's probably the most complicated part. So you're gonna straighten this out, rotate it this way, and then rotate the feet once more, another 90. And then fix his knees. So you want his shins nice and straightened out, toes pointing forward. So it's like a several step thing with the legs involving several ball joints. Straightened out. There's the legs. Now let's go ahead, open up the rat halves, like this. Go ahead, bring this mouse head all the way down so it pops into place. Lift this up on the double hinge. Put it up like so. Gonna bring the arms up. They're on a little hinge here, so push that all the way up. Fix the arms like this. So up. Swing it down. Rotate it at the elbow like so. In this section, I'm gonna take the tail, fold it up like this, and push this section up, and this will latch onto his little back piece. Take it in there, that'll hold in place. And then lastly, just turn the head around. Got a slight clearance issue, but it's not too bad. Okay, here's Rattrap. Let's go ahead and give him his gun. Has a 3mm post as opposed to the usual 5 because he is smaller. And 3mm posts seem to be pretty common amongst the core class, which makes sense because they're just like Legends figures. And, you know, I mean, Legends size class, not Japanese generation stuff. Okay, so this is what you get. And overall, it's a very solid little package. And, I mean, immediately he's recognizable as Rattrap. I mean, he works so well for that. And for the most part, he's very show accurate. The biggest downfall this figure has, you know, as far as screen accuracy, is the lower legs and the feet. So the lower legs are done up in gray because they're supposed to color match the, you know, rat mode, look like the fur. So he lacks that mechanical detailing on the legs. Just, well, I mean, the detailing's there, sorry, but the like mechanical coloration. And then the feet are just simply the rat feet. They're not robotic at all. So that's a big departure from the classic design. And, you know, not the worst thing in the world. At a quick glance, most people probably wouldn't notice. But he is a little bit simpler as far as, you know, differences between the robot and rat modes. As far as articulation, this guy's pretty much got it all. His head's on a swivel instead of a ball joint, so it just goes back and forth, doesn't look up or down or anything. The shoulders are ball jointed. It's too small to use the universal joints. Now they're a little different because the actual ball joint's coming, you know, forward as opposed to out to the side, which kind of sort of limits the articulation, but not too bad. You can still get most poses you want out of them. Ball jointed elbows, of course. The wrists, though they look like they should be on a ball joint or a swivel, they actually aren't. It's just molded to look like the, you know, ball jointed wrist that he had in the show. The waist, unfortunately, doesn't turn. And he's got ball jointed hips, ball jointed knees, and he's actually got extra ball joints. So you can technically say he's got a double knee bend, but looks kind of weird because you're just bending him partway down his shin. And then he's got ball joints on the feet. So, you know, very posable little guy. Again, I'm not the biggest fan of ball joints with modern engineering. I mean, they're revolutionary for the time. It's fitting because Beast Wars made the, you know, biggest use of them. But, you know, they're much more prone to losing their friction over time, just becoming pretty much unusable. So just be wary. You know, don't be rough with your toy because the joints will wear out more quickly. But yeah, I mean, he's as posable as you'd expect for something this size. Looks really good, very dynamic. And overall, I think I like the robot mode a lot more than the rat mode. Here again is the Thrilling 30 toy, this time in the robot mode, just so you can see how they compare. Again, overall, the Thrilling 30 toy is going to come out on top because it is a bigger figure. It does have the proper robot feet, like I had mentioned. And, you know, it's just much more articulated. The rat head scales a little better on his chest than it does the new toy. Though I will say I actually like the head sculpt of the new one more. It just captures Rattrap's personality. He just kind of looks like he's right in the middle of mouthing off to Primal, so kind of perfect. This one, a little generic in the head sculpt. It also kind of breaks away from the traditional transformation a little bit more, as far as hiding the, you know, hind feet behind the robot feet, having the tail hang down. So, I don't know. I thought I was going to come into this just saying that, you know, this one's just unequivocally better. But I don't know. Seeing them side by side now, the small one really does have a lot more personality to it. I will give it that. Even though it lacks some of the accuracy, it's a lot simpler. Doesn't come with nearly as many accessories. And this guy's got 2 guns that can combine. He's got little binoculars that hang out inside his arm there. And obviously, just more complex and more fleshed out looking. I don't know, the new one's really growing on me. Now that I have it in hand, I'm seeing them together. Neither one of them really nails the right shade of that goldish color that Rattrap has. He's got the metallic quality to it, but it's a little too dark. His, I think, has a better shade, but it's really flat. It's not metallic at all. The only metallic paint or anything he has is the silver on the top of the head and the forearms, which I will say, despite my overall disappointment with the paint apps, they nailed the forearms. They got the little stripes on there. They even have the tiny little Maximal symbols. So that's good. They could have skipped on it, but they got those details in there. So, yeah, I gotta say I'm much more impressed with this guy than I thought I'd be. He's a lot more fun in hand. And again, I keep saying it, but he's got a lot of personality, which is something I think you need for a Beast Wars toy, something based on the Beast Wars TV show. Because if that thing had a strong point, it was the characters. Whereas the original Transformers was more story-driven, with the characters just kind of going through the motions of whatever the plot needed, Beast Wars was definitely a character-driven show. I mean, you really cared about each one of the characters. They had all this personality to them. Say maybe Scorponok. Scorponok was just kind of a generic henchman. So Scorponok notwithstanding, most of the characters had a lot of personality. So I really like this toy, a lot more than I thought I would. He's really tiny, but he is meant to scale with the other figures who are admittedly operating at a smaller scale than, their size classes of old. I don't know how many of you have seen the comparison pics that someone had posted of Optimus Primal alongside like Ironhide and Optimus Prime, but he's really short. He's like the same exact height as Ironhide, who's a deluxe toy. So, I'm gonna have a lot to say on that one when I do the Primal review, because yeah, I'm sure he's more solid than Ironhide is and all that, but boy, I'm telling you now, it's not gonna feel like $30 worth of toy. This guy, I at least kind of feel like I'm getting my money's worth, at least for modern pricing. Granted, when Beast Wars was recent, $10 would have bought you a full-size deluxe, not a basic size or legend size toy. But again, Beast Wars was 25 years ago. It's a quarter of a century, so, inflation's a thing. I get it. And I'll say, this being my first core class figure, technically is the second in the line behind Optimus Prime, who I did just receive, so I'll be reviewing him soon. But, my first take on the class, he speaks well for it. He really shows that they can pull off a quality figure at a small size class. Despite his very tiny size, he is intricate. So I really like this guy. Now, as far as whether or not I think you guys should get him, if you have the deluxe Rattrap, or honestly even the classic one, which sadly I don't, they're both solid figures. You don't absolutely need this guy. This dude works just fine if you don't really care about scale. But I think you'll also be happy if you pick this one up, because he is just a really great little toy. And if you are planning on collecting Kingdom, and you want something that does scale well, he's going to be your go-to. I'm sure the classic toy would also scale rather well. I'm not sure exactly how he compares in size. It's probably bigger, honestly. But I think, for the modern aesthetic, for the unified scale they're using, I think this is the way to go. And for $10, yeah, it's $10. It's not too bad if you're a collector. So yeah, I would say pick him up. Give him a try. He's a great introduction to this new size class. Definitely the figure I'm most excited about within that class. I don't really need another Optimus, and you have Vertebrake, but I don't have an attachment to that character yet, so yeah, Rattrap does it for me. But anyway, that is of course just my opinion on Rattrap. Now I want to know what you guys think of this new toy. Do you see him being worth the price tag? How do you think he compares to older versions of the character? Any and all feedback is welcome in the comment section. If you enjoyed this review, make sure to toss it a like. Let YouTube know you want to see more stuff like this. If you do want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you always get a heads up when I post something new. I thank you for joining me for this look at the brand new Transformers Kingdom Core Class Rattrap. And with all that said, I will see you next time.